How's everyone doing? Just making this quick video on continued research that I've been doing about Judaism. You know, just going to say this, that Judaism is an important part of the Bible, the Old Testament, and the truth is that in all actuality, the Jewish identity can't really be. The Jewish identity exists, but most of the time it only exists amongst the Jewish community. You know what I mean? And most of the people who are Jewish have Jewish last names. Matter of fact, all the ones that belong to the Jewish Orthodox community have Jewish last names, obviously, because their ancestors are survivors of the Holocaust. You know, the Holocaust. You can read books from Cambridge University, right? And here you see one of the books. See the Cambridge Bible commentary. It's only a reference book. You know, I don't have all the answers to everything, but it's a book from the Cambridge University that I bought. I decided to purchase this book online. And I actually was going to college for to study computer networking, and I didn't finish. Then I started doing like digital graphics and stuff like that, audio stuff. And after a while, I just got into the transportation field because I felt I had no other choice. You know, I felt I had no other choice. I felt I had no other alternative. You know, time was ticking, and to be honest, college goes. Let's say when you're young, between the ages of like 17, those 4 years, 17 to 20, those 4 years are crucial years where you have to decide what career you're going to choose and why you're going to choose it. You know, you can't think, oh, you're a kid, you're still a kid, yes, you're in your teen years, but you're an adult now, you know. And to many of us, that affects us. For me, it affected me, and I should have went to like Bible school or college. But at the end of the day, stuff happens either to help us or we learn from it. So the conclusion with this is that yes, Judaism is important. Is important to the Jewish community. I've had a lot of friends that were Jewish. You know what I mean? That are Jewish in my community where I grew up in, but they weren't Jewish Orthodox. They were more of like Jewish. I mean, they were still Jewish, but they weren't Jewish Orthodox. That you see them dressed with in black and white all the time, and with the small the headpiece, right? You don't see that. And my point is that for me, that's why it was important. That's one of the reasons why it was important. But the other reason is that I as a kid, you know, I kind of had this Jewish identity where I looked Jewish, but I wasn't Jewish, you know. And I mean, there is a strange contradiction to that, but it is true, you know. Most of the Jewish people do look, you know, most of the time they have like their hair is a little bit kind of big, and they have big beards, right? And they wear the hat and everything. And then as a kid, you know, I remember I had this big hair all the time, and I learned a lot from the Bible as a kid, right? As a matter of fact, the entire Old Testament was Jewish. The entire Old Testament is Jewish. All the stories they were teaching us were Jewish stories about Moses and about how do you say it, Joseph and Egypt, and how do you say it, like Saul, Solomon, Samson. All these stories were Jewish stories, to be honest. So I guess my parents kind of knew that, but we didn't really. They didn't really to explain to us anything about Judaism for whatever reason. But I'm gonna say that I had a Jewish identity, but I knew I wasn't Jewish. You know. Then as I grew up, I ended up. The person I worked for was Jewish. Very strange. The person I worked for was Jewish, And it's very important, you know. Some practices that Jewish people have are like wearing the tefillin, or that's what they call it, tefillin, something like that around their wrist and stuff like that. I actually don't practice that, even though maybe I should have. I don't know. There's not too much that I could have done. You know, I mean, what else would I gonna do? You know, just go to your synagogue and knock on the door and be like, "Hey, I want to join your community." What should I do? You know, I'm not sure. You know, I'm gonna say this. Sometimes in dreams, I've seen like rabbis in my dreams because I put so much mind into the Judaism and stuff like that. And you know, how do you say it? It's important to me. It's important to me. You know, besides Christianity, I know that, let's say I've gone to a congregation, right, that claims they're Christian, but I don't feel that it's really Christianity. I'm gonna just say that. I'm gonna just say that it's not really Christianity. Most of it's not Christianity. Most of it seems like it's how do you say it? It's almost like it wants to be like close to, what do I call this, well, it's actually Pentecostal, you know. But I never really agreed with the Pentecostal, how do you say it, like church and stuff like that, like the shouting, the screaming, the you know, putting hands on people and watching people fall and stuff like that. I never really agreed with that. And for the reason that I knew that Judaism was way more important, you know. There's no such, you know, I don't believe that that's really the main purpose. You know, I believe that the purpose behind Judaism is to provide knowledge to us, to provide religious knowledge towards the individual, right? That's what Judaism is there for. It's not so much of an emotion or anything like that. It's to provide, knowledge. To provide knowledge to us is to provide a way of living, a way of thinking. To be honest. So, what I'm saying is that because of that, right? You see the Middle Eastern crisis that's been going on between Palestine and Israel and stuff like that. You know, it's sad. It's sad, you know, that goes on. Obviously, Israel is the Israelis, because the Israeli and Jewish are not the same thing. You know, the Jewish community is are not Israeli because they're here in the USA. They're not Israeli, so it's really not their fault. The Israelis defend Israel, and they've been under attack with Palestine from Palestine. As a matter of fact, I believe that the story reads that one is the son of one is Jacob and the other one is Isaac, right? One is Isaac, one is Jacob, and that's the reason why there's the battle until today. And obviously, you see that the territory in Israel, that small, the Mosque of Omar, is actually occupied by the Muslims, which that specific area, like I mentioned in one video, belonged to King Solomon. You know, the temple of the Muslims are where King Solomon's temple was. You know, the Jewish king, the Israeli king, and that's a great conflict. That's a lot of conflict there. Um, and you know, sometimes people ask me, "Hey, well, you know, Spain was conquered by, you know, talking about identity. Spain was conquered by the Arabs and the Turks and all of this." I said, yes, that's true. But the thing with that is that they never mentioned that they were Muslims. You know, Spain was conquered by the Catholic by the Catholic religion, right? They had the book, the New Testament book, the Catholic religion, and then they sent it off to the Latin Americas and so forth. But again, the people in the New Testament are all Christians. You know, they're all Christians. They're all Jewish. They're actually all Jewish characters, but in reality, they're Christian because they believe in Jesus Christ in the New Testament. So many of the times, that's my point, that sometimes ethically, some people, they don't want to know how much you know or how much you read. In all actuality, it's not really about being there's not an individual out there that can create miracles. There's no individual out there that create miracles. This is 100% about wisdom and knowledge. To obtain knowledge and and how do you say it, and to know that the mysteries of the individuals who believe in God are in the book, in the Old Testament, New Testament. They're no longer here no more. Sadly enough, they're no longer here anymore. And what's very unfortunate is also sometimes the amount of time that's taken away from us. Most of the time, the Protestant community, because I don't consider myself a Protestant. I really believe in Judaism first and foremost, more than anything. And some people hate me for that. That's why they come after me. That's how I look at that. My boss was Jewish at one point. You know, I was close with my boss, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I told him, hey, I tried to tell him like, yeah, I grew up with a lot of my friends, my neighborhood friends. There were a lot of them were Jewish. So many of them were Jewish and this and that, and I was close with my boss. But ever since then, I had to work somewhere else, and that really affected me a lot. It affected me a lot. Um, and that's why I'm making this video. Sometimes we feel that. I mean, you can look at the geopolitics and stuff. You see Israel has been under attack for years. Palestine taking over Israel like that, and then Israel is responding, and we that defend Judaism have to feel bad for that, and we do. Like for myself, I'm not involved in that war, but as a matter of fact, the strange thing about it that the people who supposedly believe in the New Testament, they signed up for this war. You know, they signed up for this war. I made a video talking about I have lost more friends in car accidents. I have lost so many friends in car accidents. I lost one friend that committed suicide, and I wish he survived suicide. He was a close friend. A lot of my friends know that about the Judaism, the Jewish community, where the Jewish community is. They know that. They know that I'm not. How do you say it? They know that I'm not. That I don't. They can't just hit off the bat and say, "Oh yeah, Gabe is Jewish, this and that." They know that because they know me for such a long time. They know that most of the times I'm identified as being Latino American. You know, they know that. A lot of my friends, most of them, they know that. Um, and I don't. My high school friends, they're still there. Some of them signed up for the army. The ones that signed up for the army, I felt like ever since they signed up for the army, I felt like I said goodbye to them once I found out. That's how it feels. And I'm not no. I can't tell. I'm not a fortune teller. I can't tell the future. None of that. So I don't feel that they they find it necessary to rely on me. I'm just saying. But most of my friends, a lot of my friends that are no longer here no more, they all of them. There's like one, two, yeah, several, like three, four that died in car accidents. And then one of my friends hung himself in the year 2012 or 2011, excuse me. He had substance abuse, stuff like that. Kind of the same story with him, and he's gone. I know that. How do you say it? He had a lot of stuff going on. He had a lot of stuff going on, and I mean, sometimes with making this video, I feel like maybe I should have been more involved with him. But at the end of the day, you don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know how they're feeling, how society they feel about society. If they and the truth is with this that society doesn't necessarily embrace people. You know, what society does is society uses people. Society uses people. Society is very destructive in nature. You know, society is destructive. Society is actually, how do you say it, a like a cancer, you know, that's taken over the entire earth, right? And it's getting rid of earth. It's getting rid of earth itself. You know, it's getting rid of our um, belief system. You know, and the thing that's not cool about this is that colleges are one of the ones that focus the most on attacking our religious beliefs. For what reason, I have no idea. But it is true, you know. Not only that, other people also. You can find people within your church that will attack you for having a Jewish identity, and they'll hate you for it. You know, I've been there, and you know, sometimes they feel, oh, you have a Semitic identity, whatever it is, then we feel the right to do whatever we want to you. Little do they forget that the individuals like myself, we've been here, we assess things, we know we're here. We're not going nowhere. As long as I live, I'm not going nowhere. I'm gonna fight on it. You know, I'm gonna fight on being right, on defending my rights. Because once you study something and you know it's right, you stick to it. You know, for me, I stuck to this for many years. I stuck to believing in Judaism for years. Ever since I was a kid, nobody can ever change my mind. You know, that not to believe in Judaism. You know, yeah, I believe in, yeah. There's the Catholic religion, Christians, this and that, but I don't really believe in them at all. I don't believe in Christianity. Yeah, Jesus Christ, he was a Christian, and he's in this book, and he stays in the New Testament, but that's it. Nobody can represent Jesus Christ, and I'm gonna tell you this, the main that's one of the main, how do you say it, errors, religious errors that has happened in churches, because there's the division of church and state. Church is church, and the church representatives, how do you say it, fail to realize that individuals that go to church, we really need to identify them as church representatives. You get what I mean? You understand what I mean? The people that are always there, they know that they need to know that we are in our rights to say you're a church representative, and I have the right to talk to you, to tell you that what you study or what you try to share is incorrect. You know, we have the right to do that. That's the first point. The second point is this: that society, you know, ever since 2010 up until now 2026, society isn't a society that is Christ focused or anything. That's a huge lie. A lot of the people that enter this, like the ministry field and all of that, I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of them, they do it out of personal need. You know, out of personal need of finding a woman. I'm gonna say that a lot of young men and a lot of women join the ministry because they want to find a man. You know, I'm gonna say that. Is that very simple? It's simple, but what has happened is that it's been made complicated because not only do individuals, men and young women, want to represent a college, they want to represent the entire world for itself. You know, they want to represent society, they want to represent church, they want to represent the college. You have to choose one thing. You get what I mean? You have to choose one thing. And some people might take it hard. You know, there's the reason why stuff happens. You know. I'm still here. You know, studying Judaism is one of the most important things ever to study, because the thing is that if you don't study something that's true and you believe it's true, and you know why it's true, and you have people that you know are Jewish, you know, if you don't study that and you don't follow your path, then you would have, by the time you're not here no more, you would have followed nothing. You would have stood up for nothing. You would have been standing up for something that you only see with your eyes. You know, you only see somebody else talking about that Paul, that Peter, this and that Timothy, and all of this, that, and you want to do the same thing, you know. But there's always a reason why you do that, you know. That's one of the things. I practice Judaism my entire life, my entire life, my entire life. Ever since I have memory in my mind, I followed Judaism. As a kid, my uncle knows this. One of my uncle knows this. One of my uncle knows this. Then my other uncles, they don't notice that. They have no idea. When my uncle noticed this. One of my uncle, he works as a tailor, you know. And he said, you know, he always shares with me, yeah, the Jewish community always comes in. He tailors for them, this and that. And that's part of religion, believe it or not. That's part of religion. I remember I ended up, how do you say it? When I was a kid, I used to visit my dad's and his brother at work as a, what was it? As a like 8 year old, you know. We used to work close to the Jewish community. It was called Rothschilds, you know. As a young kid, I was a Rothschild. A lot of people don't know that, you know. As a young kid, I was a Rothschilds, and how do you say it? And I mean, at one point, I knew that how do you say it? Maybe I could have just went back to the main thing that my dad and his brother were doing with that they have picked up on Rothschilds. You know, I should have just stuck to that specific what's the word, area or job field. I should have just stuck to that because that would have, you know, that was already paving my path to being how do you say it, in that, you know, in that specific field. But back to the topic, I mean, it was an area in the Jewish community also, so that alone should have just made me get closer to the Jewish community instead, you know. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a reason why we study Judaism. You know, there's a reason why we study Judaism. There's a reason why people support the Jewish community and get along with the Jewish community. You know, not only do they, you know, I can't speak for them, but the areas where they, you know, those communities are way more calmer. They're cleaner areas all around there. There's less crime. There's less all of that, you know, from what I know, right? And that's part of it. But Israel, supporting Israel is one of the things about it because we know that these individuals have survived the Holocaust. They have survived, how do you say it, numerous things. You know, World War One happened, World War Two happened, and now we're going through this issue here in America. 9/11 happened. A lot of the Jewish individuals again were victims on 9/11 2001. You know, and mind me, I don't discriminate against the Muslim community, the Muslim American community. I don't discriminate against them. They're here because of the reason that it's bad over there, and simply for that reason. And that's something special. That's respectful, you know. And that the truth is that that's why it's important to study Judaism. That's why it's important to study your books, because when stuff really hits the fan and you notice who's there and for what reason, then that's when it all starts to make sense. It all starts to make sense. What else? The Jewish community. Yep. Um, Society college and stuff like that. Christianity isn't taught at colleges. You know, that's not Christianity. Christianity is taught at churches. The history of Christianity is actually a series of theology that's that there is after the New Testament, you know, and that's what doesn't That's how the church sometimes doesn't make sense. You know, the church only focuses on the New Testament. They read it, and they don't even understand why the people wrote it, why the people wrote what they wrote. They don't understand why they had faith in like Timothy, or they can't even explain anything like that. They don't even explain why that Judas Iscariot was actually a Jew. They don't even explain that. You know, the name Judas, and that's the weird thing about it. The weird coincidence about it. The name Judas, right? Judas has the word, part of the word of Judaism in it. Believe it or not, Judas, Judaism. Another mystery. You know, are you watching this video? And you know, I say that my friend committed SUI. Believe that that's not the answer. You know, committing suicide, whatever it is not the answer. My friend did that. When my friend was gone, I would still pray. I would still pray and hold fast for my friend that's no longer here no more. Every few times I seen my friend in dreams. You know, because the Jewish religion doesn't teach too much about. Well, they actually do. The Jewish religion is very extent. Some of it I don't agree with it a little bit. Like they say that they believe in reincarnation. You know, I don't really believe in that, in reincarnation. It might be a sign, but I don't really believe in it. You know, and it gives me chills even talking about a topic like that. Now that I realize that maybe it is true, maybe reincarnation does exist. If the Jewish people teach it, if they don't teach it, if Judaism doesn't teach it, then I don't accept it. Don't take my word for it. You can do your own research on it, on why it's important to believe in Judaism. It's very important to know why to believe in Judaism. Judaism, all the 12 tribes, they were all different types of people, all of them. You know, Adam and Eve, all of that, it makes sense because Adam and Eve, all humanity, if you believe in this book, the Jewish book, all humanity is from Adam and Eve. Whatever they look like, whatever Adam and Eve look like, that's where how do you say humanity came from. Whatever they look like, they could have been whatever, you know. They could, who knows? They could have been tan or light tan, or they could have had blonde hair. Or they could have had brown hair. You know, it doesn't matter. It says it in here. That's where humanity comes from. You know, the Garden of Eden is actually a place. Was actually a place. Is still actually a place in the Middle East to this day. You know, I'm not trying to how do you say 100% convince you, but I'm telling you that I'm living proof that there's a reason why I'm making this video to this day. I'm living proof. I survived a very bad accident in the year 2024, and I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm living proof that how do you say it, that surviving health accidents and you blaming everyone else, blaming the people that you're supposed to blame, doesn't work. Nobody will come forward and say I'm sorry to you. And the only thing you can do is put your faith in God and stick onto your beliefs. You know, Eden exists. All humanity comes from Adam and Eve. That's why there's such a big war in today's time. You know, there's a lot of war going on against Israel because of the book, because of the Bible. That's why. You know, you wanna talk to a Catholic or somebody that claims they're Catholic, represent Christianity. You tell them, you know what, the reason there's such a war out there is because of this. Because individuals haven't been good individuals that say they represent Christianity and they have all the credit, right, for how do you say it? Have all the credit. Give me a second. Let me explain this. Have all the credit for identifying as Roman, as a Catholic, or a Christian. Remember, I said I don't identify as representing Christianity. I told you I believe in Judaism. Get it right. As in Judaism. As in I believe in Judaism, and I believe in Catholicism. Understand? Well, going through all these issues in today's time, believe it or not, we become what's considered Jewish violations. You know what a Jewish violation is? I'm gonna say this. You know what a Jewish violation is? A Jewish violation is this: that somebody has Jewish ancestry, or they look Jewish but don't have a Jewish last name, and they side with the Jewish people, but instead society pushes them to socialize with people who are against the Jewish community. That's what a Jewish violation is. If you don't want to understand that, that's your problem. No, but they had come up with a certain series, and I'm a reference to this series on a television series. You know, I shouldn't do this at all, but I should, but I'm going to. This character said, matter of fact, I'm not going to do that. You stand, you know what you have to stand? On what you believe in. What you believe in, what you know is true. That's what you stand on, and that's what you fight on. You know, you fight on what you believe in, you fight on what's right, and if you deny something, it's for very, 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 very good reason. That's what Judaism is. If you stand on deny something, it's for a very, very, very good reason. You know? That's how it is. You know? But society, you know, we have all these Christian colleges, supposedly. Not Christian. There's nothing Christian about it. You don't even, they don't, everything's emotion, everything is they're just saying stuff, oh, God said this, and there's no proof. Prove it. Prove it. Prove God said something to you. You know? We talk about dreams, which is a choice of us, right? We talk about dreams as a choice of us if you want believers or not. You know? There's good and bad dreams. But Judaism is important. Judaism is important. The Jewish community is important. And if you really want to know, look what's going on in Israel. Look what's going on in Israel. That the Jewish coin, listen to this, the Jewish coin is actually worth way more than the US dollar. Why? Because it's been under attack. It's been under attack. And Israel's been defending itself, and the coin is worth so much over the dollar that, why? Because people wake up on a daily basis in Israel and don't know if they're gonna get a RPG sent to their freaking house. No? Or a bunch of terrorists invade their area and get rid of them. That's what's been going on. Look at America. Look what we're going through. The invasion. The big invasion. Right? Think about it. I told my parents many times, I don't go nowhere. Why? Because I was born here. My parents are U.S. citizens by the due process and all of that. They became U.S. citizens. You know, and we stand on this. You know, I know that America was conquered by Great Britain, the English, many years ago, right? But that's not Judaism. Judaism didn't enter America, you know, and in the history of America, supposedly only after Judaism became important because of the Holocaust. Imagine. That's why it became important, if you think about it. Millions of people being tortured by Germany, Adolf Hitler. You know, it's sad because the truth is that the Germans and the Jews were the same people. But this is where it gets very interesting. This is what gets interesting about it, that the Jewish people here in the state I live in don't look German. That's the interesting thing about it. The Jewish people here in this state don't actually look German, you know, and they know this. They know that. The Catholics, the Protestant Catholics, and all of them, most of them are Catholics. That's all I'm gonna say. Most of the Catholics in the USA, they know that. They know that. But why do we keep going to war? Why does Trump keep setting all these individuals to go to war in the Middle East? Because he's proven that Catholicism is part of the majority's religion. That's why he's doing it. Therefore, that's why I say that Christianity isn't really Christianity. That's my point. What Christianity is that's Christianity is in the New Testament. But Christianity isn't joining the army. It's not joining the Navy. It's not joining the Air Force. It's not joining the National Guard. It is not Christianity. Christianity has its history in the New Testament. If you want to know that. Well, that's why I study more Judaism than anything, because everyone says they're Christian, and it's not Christianity. And the best example of a community that keeps the peace, of a community that stays in a knitted, connection, is the Jewish community. They're the best example that there is out there. The New Testament, after the book of Revelation was written and all of that, there's other history after that. There's history, I believe, before one of those time periods, because you see the book of Revelations was written by a certain author, right? But after that author was no longer, Christianity, I believe, still existed, something like that. Still existed. You have to do your research on this. Still existed under the being persecuted by the Roman Empire and stuff like that, and they were persecuted and all of that stuff. And you can read on it. It's very interesting. But sometimes the churches don't teach that. They don't teach that. They don't have extensive theology about that. But that's what Christianity truly is about. Learning all of the things that Christians learn. And as a matter of fact, the New Testament, those individuals in there, they're all Jews. All of them are Jews. All the New Testament are Jews, but since they were followers of Jesus Christ, they weren't considered Jews no more. They were considered, followers of Jesus Christ. Apostles in the New Testament, that's what it is. People that seen Jesus Christ. And in today's time, we only get people who are like believers and stuff like that, but I don't really, believe in Christianity. I believe more in Judaism. That's the point of this video. Jewish migration started in the years around the 1930s, like that. A lot of Jews arrived in Ellis Island in New York, and a lot of them became lawyers, very important parts of society. Yes, society isn't good, but they became lawyers and doctors and so forth, all of that, very important individuals. And what that goes to show that that the material and become an important part of a community is found in Judaism. It's found in the books, but sometimes they don't want us to they don't want us to talk about it, especially the Hispanic or the Spanish speaking community at all. And because the truth is that they want us to be Spanish speakers first, and second, to believe that they're Catholics, but they can't even prove that. Can't even prove that because in reality, the information online on the government website says that the majority of America is not Pentecostal, it's not Methodist, it's not Lutheran, it's not Baptist, all that. Majority is Catholic, Majority is Catholic. Sometimes I do agree more with the Baptist religion because it kind of the Baptist denomination, because John the Baptist, he baptized Jesus Christ. It shows works of the apostles and stuff like that. Apostle who was John the Baptist, he baptized Jesus Christ, and then everyone got baptized, and that's how the Baptist church, sort of it like that. That kind of makes a little bit more sense, to be honest, you know. But that's it to this video. That's it. I just want to say that you don't want to be bamboozling people. I'm not here to bamboozle nobody. This is an encouragement to study, the Old Testament, and the reason why I said certain stuff in this video. Remember, I said that the history of Christianity isn't all in the New Testament. Peace and blessings.